Hello and welcome to the College Football Playoff. We have 4 teams remaining who are in the hunt to ultimately win the national championship. And in today's episode, we are going to recap the 2 semifinals and the national championship. We have one matchup of Ohio State and Georgia, and in the other matchup, we have Washington and TCU. Both games should be stellar, featuring a lot of offense in the purple showdown of Washington and TCU. Then Ohio State and Georgia looking to recapture some magic of their classic semifinal game last year. First up, though, is the TCU and Washington game, where these two teams are going to face off. The big story is Heisman Trophy winner Michael Penix Jr. is going to lead this upstart Husky squad that's pretty much cruised the entire year. Their only loss came in a game where they were resting starters in a rivalry game against Washington State. And then TCU has won 12 consecutive games after losing their opener. Now, on the injury front, not a lot to report for Washington, and TCU does have a couple of guys that are banged up going into this game. But now, it's time to see how these two teams are going to fare against each other. First, we're going to go to the first quarter with 2.5 minutes remaining. Chandler Morris finds his target. That's Jack Beck for 19 yards. That would set up a TCU opportunity, 3rd and goal. Morris from the empty set, he fires to the end zone, and TCU takes a 10-0 lead off that Jalen Robinson 1-yard touchdown reception. But will Washington be able to respond? Well, on their next drive, leading into the second quarter, it's 3rd and 12. Michael Penix looking to make a play as they're in the red zone. He's got some time and he misses the target, and that would force Michael Penix and company to kick a field goal and cut into this lead 10-3. Next time they have the ball, Chandler Morris gets good protection, throws a beauty of a ball to his receiver. That's Dylan Wright for 22 yards, and TCU is cooking. Next play for Chandler Morris, he's feeling it, and he gets picked off by the Washington defensive back, and he is going to return this quite a ways over to the 25 and puts Washington in prime position. Asa Turner getting that interception. Now it's Washington's turn trying to capitalize off that turnover and getting the ball in such prime position. Less than a minute later, it's 1st and goal in Washington. Not just a team that can throw the ball. They run it in with Daniel Nata from 1 yard out, and now we have a 10-10 ball game in the middle of the second quarter. Then, TCU and Chandler Morris are starting to drive the ball again, trying to respond after that last interception. 4 minutes to go, and he throws a dot there to his receiver, and Chandler Morris seems to be feeling it again. He's a quarterback that lives a lot off confidence and has had a lot of it this year. And throws like that have to give you a good feeling of your TCU. That would lead to a TCU field goal. Now, Washington, they're in prime territory again, approaching the red zone, and just a pure bullet of a throw on target is where Rome Odunze gets the catch for 16 yards and sets up Washington for a 1st and goal. Then Penix, looking for a target, he gets great protection, finds the back of the end zone for Jalen McMillan, and now Washington has a 17-13 lead, and this TCU team is going to have to play from behind. Both these teams have only lost one time the entire year, so facing this kind of adversity is a little different for them. Then Chandler Morris on a play-action pass just throws it into double coverage. This will lead to more great field position for Washington, and TCU has turned the ball over twice, and they have given Washington great field position that allowed them to kick a field goal and go up by 7. TCU, still in the third quarter now, gets a play-action look. Here's Morris throwing out into the flats. He's picked off, and the defender is able to take this inside the 30, and a lot of time in this game is starting to slip away as the turnovers continue to pile up for Chandler Morris. That was his 3rd interception at that point. That led to another Washington field goal. They're up by 10, 2 minutes to go in the third quarter. Morris, getting pressured, throws off his back foot, and wouldn't you know it, another interception returned into TCU territory. Washington winning this turnover battle to a great degree that led to another field goal. They aren't getting the touchdowns, and that's good for the TCU defense, but they keep giving up the field goals, and eventually it's a 26-13 game. Morris gonna need some magic here, and in the form of JoJo Earl, he takes this one all the way to the house 68 yards later, and that cuts into that Washington lead. It's a 26-20 game, still with 8.5 minutes to go. A lot of pressure still on. 3rd and 2 for Washington, about a minute left in the game. They're trying to salt this away, trying to make sure that they can get that 2-score lead with not much time left. They took a lot of time off the clock during this drive. They snapped the ball with 2 seconds to go, and Michael Penix does a little shifty move, can't find the end zone. That would lead to a Washington field goal that would put them up 29-20, and that would be the final margin as Washington defeats TCU, as TCU's defense was not able to get that stop. But it's hard to blame the defense when Chandler Morris had a game that he clearly would like to forget and led to a lot of great field position for Washington. And even Washington's kicker, who goes 5 for 5 in the game, is the player of the game in a semifinal. Just doesn't feel right. But that is going to lead Washington to making their first national championship appearance in the playoff era, and leaves TCU going home a step earlier than they did last year when they made the national title game. Now, it's Georgia and Ohio State rematching from last year's playoff game, and Ohio State looking to get revenge on Georgia, and Georgia seeking their third straight national championship in an unprecedented move. And when looking at how these teams match up, it's pretty clear that they're very balanced teams. But Ohio State does not have the deficiencies that Georgia has. Georgia has one of the worst pass defenses in the country, and can Ohio State capitalize? Early on though, Georgia is able to get into a groove with a 17-yard reception for Dominic Lovett. They're playing with some pace early on in the first quarter. 2nd and 5 for Georgia, getting great protection from that offensive line. Beck is able to rip one to the sideline to Ra Thomas for 18 yards. And Georgia is now in a great position to score, where they would only get a field goal though. Ohio State able to come back on their next drive, feeling like they have an opportunity. It's 1st and goal, and Travion Henderson finds the end zone untouched. Ohio State takes a 7-3 early on in this one, still in the first quarter at that point. And so Georgia's time to respond though. You know they're not going to go down easy. They have a 3rd and goal. They're going to hand it to their big back, Kendall Milton, from less than a yard out, and Georgia retakes a 10-7 lead in the second quarter. They get the ball back after a stop against Ohio State. Beck throwing a deep ball, trying to find his man, and it's knocked away by Davison Igbenusin, his second deflection on the game at this point, as he was getting challenged deep quite a bit. At a 10-10 game now, Carson Beck throws in the flats, and there's Davison Igbenusin again, all the way to the house. And this is where we started to feel the momentum turn for Georgia, and the confidence from Carson Beck hit a different low than we had seen the entire year. Now, Ohio State felt like they were the team of destiny. They get a stop against Georgia. They're coming down near the end of the half. 51 seconds left. They're up by 7. McCord, looking to find some space, maneuvering very nicely, gets all the way down to the 3-yard line after an 11-yard rush, and there's that sneaky athleticism. And then it ends with a Travion Henderson 2-yard touchdown run, and Ohio State has a 24-10 lead with 38 seconds left in the half. Now we're going to jump to about 4 minutes left in the third quarter. The Ohio State defense continues to get stops, and the Ohio State offense continued to pound the football, running it like they have the entire year. That's Travion Henderson from 4 yards out, and now they have a 3-score lead. Can they hold it? Carson Beck trying to do anything he can, and those Ohio State DBs just started to play so aggressively and were attacking all those short patterns, and Georgia continued to have to punt after punt, and Kyle McCord ended up making them pay with beautiful throws like this, able to find as a target Emeka Egbuka for 22 yards, setting up Ohio State. First play of the fourth quarter, already up 31-10. Might as well give it to Travion Henderson again. 38-10, the route is on, and Ohio State handles their business the rest of the game. They rout Georgia in this game, and they deservedly win a game like this where Georgia's offense was just not up to the task. And after that pick six that Carson Beck threw, the offense just never found a rhythm again, and Ohio State continued to be able to run the football, and they do look like the best team in the country. And now we have to look forward to this matchup. What is it going to look like when this big Washington explosive offense faces off against a ground game in Ohio State, where they are able to hit those big passes, but it's really steadied by that play of Mayan Williams and Travion Henderson. Luckily, we don't have to wait to find out, because now we have Ohio State versus Washington in the College Football Playoff National Championship taking place at the Rose Bowl. What more could you want? But the top scoring offense in the entire country in Washington, are they going to be able to take advantage of an Ohio State defense that has all of these top marks? The weakest thing they are against, though, is the pass, so you would think that Washington will have opportunities. But can Washington slow down a running game that averages over 220 yards a game? All of these are great questions, and we are going to still find out whether Ohio State can finish off their perfect season and go 15-0 and beat Washington, or can Washington pull the upset? It's time to find out. Ohio State starts with the ball. We're about 30 seconds into the game in the first quarter. Kyle McCord is in the shotgun. He's going to face some pressure, but gets the ball out on a beautiful route. And that's G. Scott able to break off some defenders, and he's starting to pull away. He goes all the way to the end zone. And even though Ohio State has that vaunted run game, they hit Washington with the explosive pass play early on. They go up 7-0, and that's got to be a surprise if you're Washington. That is not what you expected. You expected a heavy dose of running, and Kyle McCord makes them pay. They get a stop against Washington on their first possession, and Ohio State is already back in the red zone. Here's Kyle McCord firing it to the end zone, and he's picked off. The Washington DB makes a huge play on a swing that could have been disastrous for Washington, but that allowed Washington to settle down a little bit, letting Michael Penix Jr., the Heisman Trophy winner, settle down, get his feet under him, and hits Romeo Odunze for 18 yards, getting inside the 5-yard line. Let's see if they can cash in, though. Michael Penix Jr. takes it himself, makes this a 7-7 game, and now both teams feel like they have gotten their sea legs under them in this game. It's going to come down to the execution. Ohio State up 10-7. 5.5 minutes to go in the first half. It's a 1st and 10 for Washington. Penix gives a little pump fake, and he fires a bullet, and it gets picked off. A pass that he had a lot of confidence in, but that Ohio State defender had just as much confidence picking it off and taking it back to the 40. And Ohio State has a turnover of their own by Josh Proctor, and that would give Kyle McCord some fantastic field position, trying to cash in before the half. He's looking and he fires, hits his man, breaks off a tackle. Emeka Egbuka gets all the way down to the 2-yard line 38 yards later and puts Ohio State in a fantastic spot to go up 17-7. But that wouldn't be it. Ohio State gets the ball back before half still, 25 seconds to go after a hurry-up, and McCord drops it in the bucket, hits his man, Emeka Egbuka again, a huge catch for him. 53 yards later, Ohio State has a 24-7 lead, and Washington is crumbling in the national championship game. It's a 3rd and 9 for Ohio State in the third quarter. Washington needs this momentum to shift in one way or another to try and get back in this. McCord darts out to the right and gets hit and fumbles the ball, and it's going to be returned by the Washington defender all the way down to the 2-yard line, and Washington has no choice at this point. If you're starting a drive from the 2, you have got to punch it in. Luckily on 1st and goal, Penix got the message, delivers a beautiful ball to Jalen McMillan from 3 yards away, and Washington is now only down 10 and is lurking in this game and not quite out of it. But as you might imagine from a team that's 14-0, Ohio State has a response in them. 1st and 10 Ohio State. Beautiful corner route to Lorenzo Styles. 21-yard touchdown. And Ohio State maintains a 3-score lead with 4 minutes left in the third quarter at this point. We're going to pick it back up. A minute left in the third. It's a 3rd and 6 for Penix. And he delivers to the sidelines and is not able to fit it in. And that would be a tough blow for Washington. They'd have to punt and give the ball back to Ohio State. Then the next drive Washington has, it's a 3rd and 3 with about 6 minutes to go. He fires to the end zone, hits Giles Jackson from 16 yards away, and Washington has cut the lead to 10 again. Do they have a comeback in them? A lot is going to ride on that left arm of Michael Penix. Next drive for Ohio State, they have a 3rd and 10. Washington trying to get the ball back, seeing what they can do, but McCord finds a beautiful lane to Lorenzo Styles for a 22-yard reception, and Ohio State was able to drive the ball back down the field. Mayan Williams scores a 1-yard touchdown. They go up by 3 scores again, and that's all you would need to see. Washington would continue their furious comeback, but Ohio State would maintain their lead and would eventually pull off another national championship, the first in the Ryan Day era. An incredibly impressive performance from Kyle McCord, who was just purely a game manager for most of the year and really was maintaining that running game. But today he stepped up and delivered some key throws and proved that he is not just that game manager and is totally deserving of being a national championship winning quarterback. And congratulations to Ohio State, a balanced effort that is incredibly impressive in the box score. And Washington was just not able to pull off that comeback. I do want to thank everybody for tuning in, no matter how much of this Dynasty you got to watch. It's been a pleasure getting to put it together, and I hope you enjoyed seeing a lot of Florida State football and getting to see what else the universe had in store. I feel like it was a pretty entertaining season, and I plan on keeping it going. I've already recorded quite a bit of the off-season for Season 1, and I can assure you that a lot is going to happen. The plan is that we're going to have one video that's going to focus on coach carousel, player movement, transfer portal kind of stuff. A second episode that's going to be on the Season 2 spring game, and then a third episode that's going to preview Season 2 and what our roster looks like, what other teams' rosters look like, what our schedule looks like, those sorts of things, and what you can expect from that kind of front. So I hope you continue tuning in, and before too long, we're going to have Season 2 up and running, and we'll see how our Noles can do.